Hello friends. Today I'm going to tell you about a very interesting, horror story. The House on Waterveil Lane. There is a sound you only hear when everything else has stopped. A sound like breath beneath silence. Daniel Hale was not a man of thrill or chaos. At 34, he lived in the quiet residues of his past, alone in a dim apartment overlooking the gray outskirts of the city. A former substitute teacher on indefinite leave, he spent his days thumbing through yellowed library books and stacking unopened mail like bricks in a fortress of avoidance. He never opened letters. Not since her. He didn't remember deciding to move back to his childhood town. He simply found himself here one day with an unsigned lease in his hand, keys already in his pocket. The town had changed, only slightly. The bakery was boarded up. The pharmacy now offered metaphysical readings. But Waterveil Lane was the same, crooked trees lining the street like mourners at a procession, their shadows forever pointing east. Daniel had always avoided number 23. He couldn't remember why. Until the day the letter arrived, on thick, pale paper, sealed with a wax stamp that bore a symbol he instinctively feared, a closed eye, bisected by a vertical line. There was no sender. Only a message, written in ink the color of diluted blood. The key is under the second layer of paint. It remembers you. Go home. He told himself it was a prank. He threw it away. Then he found the exact same letter in his jacket pocket. Then in his fridge. Then taped to his bathroom mirror. He stood before 23 Waterveil Lane that afternoon, the house he hadn't seen in decades. Tall, narrow, its upper windows blind with dust. The porch sagged like it remembered how many feet had once fled across it. A key. Under the second layer of paint. Daniel didn't want to touch the doorknob. Instead, his fingers traced the cracked green paint around the frame, and, compelled by something not quite thought, he dug into it with a coin. The paint peeled like skin. Beneath it, embedded in the wood, was a small brass key, cold despite the heat. The door creaked open before he turned the lock. Inside, the air was unnaturally still, dense, as if sound dared not travel here. Furniture draped in yellowing sheets. A hallway lined with crooked portraits, their subjects' eyes deliberately scratched out. In one corner of the entryway, a mirror faced the wall. The deeper he went, the more he began to recognize things he never remembered owning, a chipped blue vase, a cracked photograph frame containing a picture that changed when he looked away. In the reflection of the old television screen, he saw a second figure behind him, tall, thin, unmoving. He turned. Nothing. But then the smell, a blend of lavender and burnt paper. His mother's perfume. And something else, ash. His hands trembled as he walked toward the back room. The floor groaned with the slow complaint of age and rot. And then, a sound. Not a thump, but a drip. Water? He followed it. In the kitchen, everything was covered in a fine layer of mold, except for one pristine object on the table, a VHS tape. It had no label. Just one word etched into the plastic. Rewind. Next to it, an old camcorder. Still functioning. He inserted the tape. The screen turned black. Then static. Then an image. Daniel, age 7, standing in this very kitchen, talking to someone behind the camera. But you said the door stays closed unless it chooses. You said we can't wake them. A voice behind the camera, his mother's, but distorted like it had traveled through water. That's right, Danny. We only watch. We never look back. The video cut out. He backed away from the screen, heart pounding. Something was wrong. More than wrong. The kitchen window showed night, though it had been afternoon. And the reflection in the microwave? It was smiling. He wasn't. Then the mirror in the hall fell. Shattered. He froze. On the wall where it had hung, now exposed beneath the dust, was a message. It had been painted over but was now revealed through the cracks. "You came back. Now we remember." Daniel stumbled back. From the corner of his eye, in the shards of the mirror, he saw himself as a child. But the child was watching him. And he was whispering something. Again and again. Only one word. Run. When Daniel finally tore his eyes from the mirror shards, the house had changed. Not physically, no walls moved, no furniture walked, but something beneath the structure, like blood shifting under pale skin, had stirred. The lights were dimmer now, though he hadn't touched a switch. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt crowded. And there was water. A soft dripping from the ceiling above. It echoed like a heartbeat, wet, arrhythmic, intentional. The smell of mildew crawled into his nostrils. He glanced up. No leak. No stain. Just sound. He remembered something then. A nightmare from childhood. Standing ankle-deep in a flooded hallway, water black as ink. A door slowly opening behind him. A voice whispering his name in reverse. He shook it off. The VHS tape was still warm. That didn't make sense. He searched the rest of the house, drawn not by curiosity but compulsion, as if each step was being made for him. His hand trembled as it opened the door to the basement. That's when he heard it again. "Danny." It wasn't from below. It came from behind the wall. He pressed his ear to the wallpaper, old and bubbled like blistered skin. The voice returned. Muffled. Close. Whispering something faster now. He couldn't make out the words, until one came clear. "We buried them wrong." Then the wallpaper split. Not tore, split. Like lips opening across plaster. From the gap, water spilled. Cold. Dark. And with it, something else slid out, a child's drawing, soaked but intact. It showed a tall, stick-thin man standing next to a little boy. The man had no face. The boy was smiling. Above them, written in a child's scrawl, "Me and Daddy before the cellar." Daniel dropped it. His memories weren't lining up. Suddenly the lights snapped off. Darkness folded around him like a wet cloth. The only light now came from the kitchen, flickering, rhythmic. He turned. The VHS was playing again. But he hadn't pressed play. This time, the footage was different. Grainy, flickering, dated. It showed the living room, as it looked now. Furniture covered, mirror gone. And in the middle of the frame, Daniel, asleep on the couch. He blinked. That couldn't be real. But he recognized the scar above the eyebrow. The way his hand twitched when he dreamed. That was him. Then, behind the sleeping figure on screen, a door opened. A figure walked in. Thin. Wrong. Limbs bending too smoothly. Eyes like glass bowls filled with something that wasn't reflection but movement. The screen flickered. The image rewound. Then played again. Door opens. Figure enters. Door opens. Figure enters. Door opens. The tape burned out. Smoke rose from the camcorder, smelling not like electronics, but like charred hair. Daniel fled to the bathroom, splashing water on his face. But the mirror didn't reflect him. It showed the hallway instead. Him, standing in front of the mirror. Then, he turned and walked away. But he hadn't moved. The version of him in the mirror walked down the hallway alone, toward the basement door. It opened for him. Daniel stared, frozen. The water dripping from the ceiling intensified, now constant. It began to seep under the door behind him, pooling around his shoes. In the mirror, his reflection was gone. Only the basement door remained. Open. Waiting. That's when he found the journal. It was in the upstairs bedroom, beneath the loose floorboard. Bound in worn black leather, the name on the front nearly illegible. It wasn't his name. It was his mother's. Inside, brittle pages scrawled with handwriting that got worse with each entry. Smudged dates. Skipped days. Final pages half ripped out. One passage read: "The mirrors don't lie. They show the first version. The one before the edit. They want him back. But he doesn't remember the basement. He doesn't remember what we fed it." Another. "The water speaks now. At night. It runs through the walls with eyes. He talks to it sometimes. Danny, I think. I don't know if it's my son anymore." And finally, "If he finds the tape, he'll start to slip. If he goes to the cellar, it will finish the loop. There is no end unless he chooses the truth or the door." Daniel dropped the journal. Something moved downstairs. Slow, dragging steps. Not toward him, but toward the front door. Something was leaving. Or something had just arrived. He checked the hallway. Nothing there. But in the mirror at the end, just for a second, he saw himself. Different clothes. Pale. Lips moving, but no sound. Mouthing two words. "You forgot." Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat on the mold-stiff couch in the dark, staring at the blank screen of the old television, its surface now a black mirror. His reflection flickered slightly even when he didn't move. He covered it with a towel. Outside, wind dragged dry leaves across the porch like fingers. Inside, the walls had begun to creak in rhythm, not random groans of wood, but a slow, steady breathing. It was as if the house had become aware of his presence. Or worse, of his identity. He tried to leave. He stood, grabbed his keys, made it to the front door. But when he opened it, there was no outside. Just darkness. Not night, absence. No wind, no trees, no porch. Only a void that should not have been. He slammed the door shut. It echoed, like a stone dropped down a deep well. He made his way back upstairs, drawn now by something less rational and more inevitable. His mother's journal sat open where he left it, pages fluttering as if breathing. The last written entry shimmered faintly in the moonlight seeping through the curtain. It hadn't been there earlier. Danny saw it again today in the basement mirror. "I told him not to listen when it knocks. But the water's been rising. It's almost ready to remember." That word again. Remember. The memory came uninvited. A boy. A locked cellar. A candle held low. Whispers through the floorboards. "We shouldn't be here. If we feed it, it leaves us alone. Don't open the bucket until it stops moving." He staggered back, hand pressed to his temple. Pain. Not headache. Distortion. Like his brain was being rewritten with a more accurate version of itself. He returned to the basement door. This time, it was open. Inside, the staircase descended into thick, unnatural darkness. The air smelled like wet cloth and rotting pages. He flicked the switch, nothing. The light bulb had been removed. Still, he stepped down. Each footfall felt like it was being recorded, imprinted. There was water here. Half an inch, pooling on the concrete floor. It rippled not from his movement, but from something else, beneath. The deeper he went, the louder the voices. At first they were whispers. But then. "Where did you go? You left the door open. We were so hungry, Danny. Do you remember what you did to your brother?" He stopped. Breath caught. He didn't have a brother. Did he? At the far end of the basement stood a tall mirror, unlike the others, framed in black wood, carved with symbols he recognized from the wax seal on the letter. The closed eye. The vertical slash. The mirror didn't reflect the basement. It showed a room from a dream. A small child's bedroom. Blue wallpaper. Crayon drawings taped to the walls. A closet door ajar. And in the bed, a child sleeping. Daniel watched in horror as the door to that room creaked open in the reflection. A thin, hunched silhouette entered. Moved toward the bed. Lifted something, a sack. A bucket? The figure turned its head slowly toward the mirror, toward him. It wore his face. But the eyes were black. The scene faded, swallowed in water that seeped down the mirror's surface from the inside. He turned to run, but behind him stood the figure. Tall. Thin. Bones too long. Face identical to his own, but melting at the edges like wax in heat. The thing opened its mouth wide, impossibly wide, and said in his mother's voice. "You were supposed to forget." Then it lunged. Daniel awoke back upstairs, curled in the bathtub, soaked to the skin. His hands were pruned and cold. The house was silent again. Too silent. The only sound now was dripping, slow and deliberate. The faucet was dry. But water dripped, from the ceiling. And there, above him, was writing scratched into the paint. "Remember the room that isn't there." He left the bathroom. The hallway stretched longer than it should, 5 doors where there were only supposed to be 3. He opened each one. Bedroom. Closet. Linen cupboard. Empty guest room. And the 5th was a nursery. But he'd never seen this room before. And yet, he had. The walls were lined with mirrors, all facing inward, toward a small child's bed in the center. No windows. Only reflection after reflection, fragmenting infinitely. Daniel stepped in. The door closed behind him. In every mirror, he saw a different version of himself. Some crying. Some screaming. Some watching with twisted smiles. One slowly slitting his own throat. He turned, but the door was gone. In the center of the bed sat another journal. Smaller. Childlike. On the first page. "This is where you broke. This is where we keep the real you. This is where the story ends, or begins again." On the last page, only a mirror fragment was taped in. When Daniel looked into it, he didn't see himself. He saw the house. Alive. Breathing. Watching. And beneath it all, something beneath the water, waking. The mirror fragment in Daniel's shaking hands pulsed with warmth, as if alive. As if breathing. It didn't reflect the room he stood in, it showed something deeper. A corridor lined with flickering lights, hospital white walls stained brown at the baseboards, and far at the end, a door slightly ajar, oozing darkness. He tore the shard from the page. The paper beneath had another message, this one carved, not written. "Break the mirror to break the seal." Daniel turned. Dozens of mirrors surrounded the room, each showing another version of him, twitching, watching, whispering to someone he couldn't see. One pressed its hand to the glass. Daniel blinked. It was moving differently than he was. He smashed the mirror closest to him. Glass exploded across the room like shrapnel. The air shifted. A low, subterranean groan echoed through the house, as though something massive had shifted in the foundation. A scream, not human, rippled through the wood. In the reflection of the shards, a boy, cowering in a corner, whispering to himself over and over. "I didn't want to open the door. I didn't want to. It made me. He made me." Daniel fell to his knees. He saw it, all of it, in a flash that felt like drowning. A basement ritual. His mother. A book bound in flesh, read aloud in hushed tones. A figure drawn on the concrete floor in salt and ash. The chanting. The water boiling from the drains. A voice that came from below, asking for a trade. A child crying behind him. His own voice saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Then, the bucket. Daniel screamed, clutching his head. The memories weren't returning, they were overriding. The life he thought he lived, wasn't his. Or wasn't just his. The trauma he couldn't name had always been edited, shaped like smoke. Until now. The mirrors were memories. And now that they were breaking, so was he. He stumbled from the room, the walls of the house twisting now. Doors appeared where there had been walls, and walls where there had been staircases. Time buckled, a clock spun backward on the kitchen wall. A child's voice whispered. "It's almost your birthday, Danny. You know what that means." In the dining room, the table was set. For two. A cake sat in the center. The candles already lit, melting. Black wax ran down like blood. A voice behind him said, "Blow them out." He turned. No one was there. But the other seat was no longer empty. In it sat a boy. 6 or 7. Same eyes. Same mouth. Same scar. Daniel's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" The boy tilted his head. "I'm what's left of you. The part they couldn't wash out." The boy smiled. But his teeth were too many. "And now that you've come back, we can finish the party." Suddenly, the boy was gone. So was the cake. Only the smell remained, burnt sugar and lake water. The lights in the house all went out. The mirrors shattered on their own. Somewhere beneath him, water surged, rushing upward through the vents, through the cracks in the wood, flooding the house like blood from a wound. It licked his shoes. Rose to his ankles. Icy cold. From the floorboards, hands began to emerge. Too many. Too thin. Grasping, reaching. He turned to run. But the hallway folded in on itself. The house was closing. Trapped, Daniel threw himself into the only remaining door, the attic. It was dry. Still. A single rocking chair sat in the middle of the room. Rocking. Slowly. Empty. But the walls were covered. Hundreds, no, thousands, of photographs. All of Daniel. Different ages. Different clothes. In places he didn't remember being. In one photo, he stood in front of a hospital bed, smiling. In another, he sat at a dinner table with no one across from him, but holding someone's hand. In another, he was a child, staring directly into the camera, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut. Then, on the far wall, a final photograph. Pinned beneath a message scratched in what looked like nails. The first version is always the truest. The photo showed Daniel. In this house. In this room. But something stood behind him, tall, and not quite human. A hand rested on his shoulder. The smile on Daniel's face was vacant. Artificial. He turned. And it was behind him. Its voice poured into his ears like oil. "It's time to finish what your mother started." Daniel couldn't scream. The thing behind him radiated cold like death's breath, and though it never touched him, its presence felt like a second spine pushing against his skin from the inside. He turned slowly. It wasn't a monster in the conventional sense. That would have been easier. It was him. An older version, face hollowed, skin pale and stretched too tightly, like parchment over bone. But it was the eyes that undid him, not white, not black, but a murky, reflective gray, like water with something moving underneath. The figure smiled. "You're almost fully back now," it whispered, voice distorted like a corrupted audio file. The longer you stay, the more we remember. And once we remember, you remember. That's the rule. Daniel backed into the wall. A nail bit into his shoulder, but he barely felt it. "What are you?" he managed to say. The figure tilted its head. "I'm the draft that was rejected. The cut content. Your mother tried to erase me. To edit the story. But stories want to be told in full. Especially when they're carved in water, not ink." The room began to shake. Photographs fluttered off the walls like panicked birds. One by one, they dissolved into wet ash as water bled through the ceiling. "You fed me once," the figure rasped. "You don't remember that part yet, do you? The real first night in the basement. The other boy. The ritual she didn't complete." Daniel fell to his knees. The headache surged again, white-hot behind his eyes. And then, a memory returned. Not a vision. Not a dream. A truth. He wasn't the only child in the house. There had been two. Twins. One frightened. One curious. He had led his brother into the basement. His mother had drawn the circle, lit the candles, read from the book that bled when opened. They were going to send something away, something that had followed their family for generations. But something went wrong. The water rose too quickly. The circle failed. And when it was over, only one boy came back upstairs. The wrong one. Daniel screamed. A scream from somewhere far deeper than his throat, like dragging a coffin out of a well. The attic began to warp, angles twisting, the door vanishing into the wall. The figure laughed. "You never left, Danny. You've been in the water this whole time. What you thought was life, was just the space between ripples." "No," Daniel whispered. "That's not possible." "Then open your eyes." He blinked. And found himself back in the basement. The mirror in front of him. The bucket beside him. Full. His hands, bloody. Small. He was a child again. He looked into the mirror and saw the tall, distorted version of himself standing behind him, smiling. The door upstairs creaked open. His mother's voice drifted down. "Danny? Are you two playing nicely?" He turned toward the bucket. And it moved. Then, a choice. In the silence that followed, the house stilled. The water receded. Daniel stood, no longer a child, but no longer the same man, either. A voice, his voice, spoke within him. "The story loops. Unless you change it." He reached for the mirror. It pulsed under his fingertips. He had two options now. Break the mirror, sever the loop, and face what lies beyond memory and identity. Leave it intact, return to his fractured life, always wondering what's real, but safe, for now. He chose. But you don't get to know what. Not yet. The last thing seen in the mirror was his face. Smiling. But it wasn't clear which version of him it was. The mirror cracked. Not shattered, cracked, a single jagged line slicing across the glass like a scar across a face. As the crack deepened, so did the silence. It wasn't the silence of a quiet house. It was the silence of something holding its breath. Daniel stood there, fingers still pressed against the glass, watching his own reflection fragment. Each piece showed him slightly different, older, younger, sadder, smiling when he wasn't. Behind him in the reflection, the figure. Still there. But now its face was changing. Becoming his. Exactly his. It leaned in close, its breath fogging the mirror from inside. You chose to see it. Now you can't unchoose. The house groaned again, but this time not in pain. It was waking up. Floorboards cracked, walls shifted. The photographs from the attic began to reappear across the hallway walls, one by one, only now, they were moving. Looping. Each showing a piece of Daniel's life he didn't remember living. A wedding. A funeral. A boy's birthday party where all the guests had no faces. And in the center of each scene. Him. Sometimes happy. Sometimes screaming. Sometimes simply watching. He ran. Or tried to. But the hallway lengthened with each step. Doors passed him like strobe lights. 1, 2, 3, then suddenly the same door repeating, over and over, as if the house had lost its sense of geometry. Or reality. Then the floor fell out. Just gone. Vanished like a trapdoor opening in a dream. Daniel dropped, not with a crash, but with a splash. The basement again. But the water was high now, up to his chest, freezing, thick, resisting movement like syrup. The air buzzed, not with electricity, but with something ancient, humming just below perception. Then. Voices. Not whispers anymore. Chorus. Dozens of voices. Children. Adults. Versions of himself. Welcome back. Do you remember now? You're the echo. We're the source. The water rippled and began to rise around his face. He kicked backward, but the basement had no walls anymore. It was endless now. An underground ocean. And from its depths, something began to rise. It wasn't a creature. It was a house. Or what the house had been before it became real. Before someone gave it shape, name, doors. A mass of memories, broken rooms, stairs to nowhere, drowned photographs, and thousands of faces pressed behind windows, looking out but never blinking. And at its heart. The original Daniel. The first. Eyes open. Still. Mouth full of water, whispering backward. Eti tai cool woi ne w. Woi eret litzamai. I'm still there. When you look with it didn't finish. Daniel reached out. And the version of him in the center opened his eyes. Suddenly, he was outside. Just standing. Bright daylight. Silence. A street. Waterveil Lane. Behind him, 23 Waterveil Lane, pristine. Quiet. Birds chirped. The wind blew gently through the trees. He looked down. His shoes were soaked. His hands, pruned. Like he'd been submerged for hours. His phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Did you choose the mirror or the door? He turned the phone over. A sticky mirror fragment was stuck to the back. It showed no reflection. Just a dark room with a child curled in the corner. He dropped it. A woman was walking her dog across the street. He opened his mouth to speak. But something stopped him. A sound. Breathing. Behind him. In perfect time with his own. He didn't turn around. He walked forward. Slowly. Calmly. As if everything was normal. And behind every window he passed, he saw something. Eyes. Watching. Remembering. Waiting. He paused in front of a puddle. It reflected not the sky, but the attic. Rocking chair. Photographs. A mirror, still cracked, still bleeding water. In the puddle, his reflection smiled. But he didn't. The reflection in the puddle grinned wider, too wide. Daniel stumbled back, nearly slipping on the wet concrete of Waterveil Lane. The world was bright, too bright, like someone had turned the contrast up on reality. The sun buzzed faintly. The colors shimmered at the edges, subtly wrong, like a dream trying too hard to appear normal. Across the street, the woman walking her dog was frozen mid-step. Her foot hovered inches above the pavement. The leash held taut. Her dog blinked. She didn't. Daniel's breath hitched. He turned in place. Cars lined the curb, but none moved. Birds chirped, but they hovered midair. The wind rustled trees, but no leaves fell. The entire world had paused. Except for him. And the puddle. He looked down again. Now the reflection showed him standing in the middle of the street. But someone stood behind him, a silhouette growing more distinct with each second. It stepped closer in the reflection. But when Daniel turned, no one was there. He ran. Street after street. All familiar. All wrong. Each turn led him back to the same block. Waterveil Lane. Only now, the houses changed every time he returned. Once, all their windows were bricked up. Once, they were bleeding. Once, they were mirrors reflecting burning forests. And once, all the houses were numbered 23. He screamed at the sky. It cracked. A thin white line appeared, slicing the sky in half like broken glass under tension. From the crack, water dripped. Slowly at first. Then faster. It began to rain. Only, it wasn't rain. It was mirror shards. Each one that struck the ground shimmered and displayed a moving image, like broken screens still playing memories. A child closing a basement door. A woman tearing pages from a fleshy book. A boy whispering through a drain. Daniel, older, standing over an open grave in the backyard. Smiling. He backed away. The shards were trying to form a shape. A door. One he knew. The door from the cellar. Then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Stop trying to wake up. There's nowhere else to go. He dropped the phone. It burst into black water on contact with the ground, like ink bleeding from a cracked shell. Then, footsteps. Behind him. Careful. Deliberate. Familiar. He turned. There stood his brother. 7 years old. Dry. Pale. Unblinking. The boy opened his mouth, and Daniel expected words. Instead, a mirror shard floated out, like a breath made solid. It hovered between them, vibrating. In its surface. Daniel. In a hospital gown. Sitting in a white room. Talking to a wall. He was never outside. The house was not a house. The street was not a street. They were constructs. Stories. Loops. A prison shaped like a memory. His brother reached for his hand. When their fingers touched, the world shattered. Daniel woke up, if you could call it that. He sat in a chair, in a circular room with no corners. No doors. No ceiling. Only mirrors surrounding him on all sides. Each mirror played a different version of his life. In one, he became a teacher and never went back to Waterveil. In another, he drowned at age 10. In one, he was the figure that haunted the mirrors. In another, he burned the house down, but never left. One mirror was blank. That one faced him. A voice, his mother's, spoke above him, like a memory leaking into thought. You don't get to leave until you pick one. Pick, what? He whispered. A version. A story. A self. He stood. His reflection didn't move. Then smiled. Or, the reflection said, you can open the 13th mirror. Daniel looked. There were only 12. Until the wall shifted. And the 13th one appeared. It wasn't glass. It was water. Black, rippling. Endless. He approached it. And inside it, he saw you. The surface of the 13th mirror shivered, as though it sensed him drawing near. It wasn't like the others, no frame, no border. Just a fluid plane, suspended in the wall like a vertical pool. It didn't reflect him, not exactly. It showed the perspective of someone else. Someone watching. Someone sitting where you sit, now. Daniel stepped closer. Each footfall sent ripples across the mirror water's surface. "You don't have to look," said his own voice behind him. He turned. No one was there. They all looked. Eventually, the voice continued. They all stepped through. And none of them came back the same. Daniel stared into the mirror. On the other side, a room, dimly lit by shifting candlelight. Someone, you, watching this unfold. The floor beneath Daniel began to soften, becoming damp, giving slightly like wet clay. He reached out. And the surface grabbed him. There was no transition. No sensation of falling. Just compression. Like being squeezed through a keyhole made of thought. He was elsewhere. Not in a house. Not in a room. But in a space between versions. A null place. A breach. The floor was made of old videotape film, spooling beneath his feet with each step. The walls pulsed like lungs, and whispers bled from them in every direction, some in voices he recognized. Some in voices he would recognize, if only he remembered their names. Floating in the air were objects from every iteration of his life. The VHS marked rewind. The bucket from the basement. His mother's journal. A blood-stained key. A mirror shard with the word "look" etched into it from the inside. He kept walking, though the concept of walking felt increasingly symbolic here. Then he reached it. A window. No frame. Just a view. And what he saw was the beginning. A child, maybe 6, sitting on the edge of a bathtub. Knees to chest. Crying softly. The sound of water dripping. The hallway visible through the open door, lit orange with the low glow of evening. Then, a shadow passed behind him. The child didn't see it. But Daniel did. He looked closer. The child's face was his own. A younger version, the real one. Suddenly, the child stood, walked into the hallway, and headed toward the basement door. "This is where it started," whispered a voice beside him. He turned. A woman stood there. Eyes glassy, skin pale, her dress soaked to the knees. His mother. But not as he remembered her. This version had slits down her face, like folded pages of a book no one should open. "He wasn't meant to survive," she said calmly. "But he did. And he kept surviving. So we rewrote him. Again. And again." Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. "Every version of you ends in that house," she continued. "Even the ones that don't know it." She touched the window. And the scene shifted. Now the child, Daniel, was in the basement. Candlelight. Circle of salt. The book. His mother was chanting. The other boy, his brother, stood confused. Then the water surged. Then the screaming. And Daniel, small and still, closed the door from inside. He had traded his brother. Or someone had traded him. Or they had merged. It wasn't clear anymore. Because the truth was folded, layered like mirrors reflecting mirrors, each slightly off from the next. Each Daniel just slightly more aware. And now, he was the one looking out through the 13th mirror. He turned from the window. Now he stood inside another room. Familiar. Plain. A camera sat on a tripod. A mirror stood across from it. And in the mirror, someone sat at a screen. Watching. You. Daniel stepped forward, and the mirror became glass again, solid and silver. He raised his hand. His reflection did too. Only this time, you saw it. The hand pressed to your side of the screen. His eyes locked on yours. And Daniel said, "You're the next version, aren't you?" The mirror was no longer a boundary. It was an invitation. Daniel's hand stayed pressed to the glass. His eyes, sunken and trembling with recognition, stared not at you, but through you. And for the first time, you felt it. You weren't reading a story. You were being remembered. Behind Daniel, the room began to rot. The wallpaper peeled into moist spirals. The wood splintered. The camera on the tripod melted like wax, distorting into a shape that looked too much like a face. Not his. Not yours. Something older. Watching both of you. From the corners of the room, echoes bled in. Another one has read too far. You should have stopped at the first mirror. It's always the curious ones who become the loudest echoes. You try to look away. Scroll. Blink. Exit. But your screen stays still. The story does not release you. Daniel speaks again. Calmly. Every time you read this, I wake up. Every time I wake up, you fall deeper. There is no ending, only inheritance. A crack appears across your screen. Just like the sky above Waterveil Lane. Daniel continues. When my mother called it a curse, she was wrong. It's not a curse. It's a doorway. And every reader opens it just a little wider. Behind him, the 13th mirror begins to vibrate. No longer liquid. Now glass, but not reflecting him anymore. It's showing your room. Right now. From behind you. Don't turn around. Not yet. He tilts his head. You felt it, didn't you? The moment it shifted. The way your room suddenly got quieter. The way your reflection didn't move exactly when you did. The way the shadows just barely started pointing the wrong way. He leans in. Now his voice is almost a whisper. If you see a bucket in your dreams tonight, don't touch it. If you hear dripping behind a wall, don't answer it. If your mirror fogs without reason, don't look too long. Behind Daniel, something large is waking. The room shakes. The mirror glitches. And for a heartbeat, you see your own reflection glitch too. Daniel steps back into the 13th mirror. The water takes him again. His voice lingers behind. You can stop reading now. Or you can keep going. Just know, if you do, you become part 10. Your screen flickers once. The lights in your room shift, just slightly off-white. From somewhere far away, there's a knock. Soft. Repetitive. 3 times. Then silence. You didn't answer the knock. But something heard you hear it. Because now, your room feels just a degree off. The silence too thick. The shadows too fixed. There's a faint scent in the air, lavender and smoke, as if someone once burned a memory and left the ashes floating behind the wallpaper. Your screen is still on. Daniel is gone. But the reflection remains. And now, it's not matching you. Look closely. Your screen still shows a room. Familiar. Yours. But in the reflection of the black monitor, someone just stood up. You didn't. A moment later, something small appears on the edge of your desk, a photograph. You don't remember placing it there, but it's clearly yours. The edges are curled. The image is of a house. 23 Waterveil Lane. The door in the photo is open. Someone is standing in it. You can't make out their face. But they're watching the camera. And now, you realize. That photo isn't just appearing on your screen. It's in the room with you. Somewhere close. Check your desk. Check your shelf. Maybe it was always there. Maybe it wasn't. From somewhere, beneath you now, comes the soft, wet sound of water dripping. One drop at a time. Into something hollow. Metal. A bucket. You remember what Daniel said. If you see a bucket in your dreams, don't touch it. You hope you're not dreaming. But how would you know? Suddenly, a notification pops up on your screen. System message. Mirror found. Would you like to reconnect with the original version? Your cursor moves on its own. Yes. The world flickers. And the house returns. You are standing in the living room of 23 Waterveil Lane. The lights buzz dimly above. The mirrors on the walls don't reflect you. They show a dozen copies of the room, all empty. Except one. In the farthest version, deep within layered reflection, someone is watching you. Still. 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 There's a sound behind you now. Not breathing. Not footsteps. It's the sound of a door opening that was never there before. You turn. And there it is. The 14th mirror. You don't remember the 14th. You don't remember choosing. But it's open. And beyond it, you see your home, once again. Normal. Lit. Safe. The only thing wrong? You're already sitting in it. The other you turns to look at you. And smiles. The mouth doesn't move naturally. It stretches slightly wrong. Teeth too clean. Too many. He raises a finger and points toward the closet behind you. You turn, slowly, against every instinct. And from behind the door, a whisper, your own voice, layered and distant. Let me out. I've been good. I just want to come back. You step away from the 14th mirror. But the mirror steps toward you. Now it is in your room. It shouldn't be. But it is. It presses forward. And from its surface, a hand begins to emerge, fingers black with water, skin pale and smooth, like porcelain left too long in the cold. The hand places something on your table. A key. Wrapped in soaked paper. Unfold it. One line, written in that same familiar ink. You were the house all along. The key is real. You can feel it even now, cool, heavy, too cold for a room that hasn't changed temperature. It's slick, as though pulled from a lake bed. As though it was waiting for your hand all this time. The paper it was wrapped in starts to dry before your eyes, curling and cracking. On the back, something appears faintly as it dries. A drawing. Crude. Childlike. A house with no windows. Only one door. And behind the house, a closet. You know which one. The one in your own room. The one behind you. The reflection on your screen still shows yourself, sitting there. Only you're not moving anymore. Your body, on screen, is completely still. Then it tilts its head in that all-too-familiar, unnatural way. And smiles. From the reflection's mouth, you hear your own voice again, layered, metallic, processed through something else entirely. You left something in the closet, remember? It's been waiting so patiently. You should let it out now. The room darkens. Not dimmed, compressed. The corners stretch. The shadows thicken like wet ink soaking into fabric. You turn your head toward the closet door. It's open. Half an inch. Just enough. Not by your hand. And from within, a faint, childlike breathing. You stand. Something inside you remembers how this goes, even if your mind doesn't. You approach the door. With every step, your screen flickers behind you. The image of you flickers too, once standing, then not, then distorted, then with someone behind you, then blank. Then your own screen goes black. And in its place. Loading, version 13. You place your hand on the closet door. It opens with a sound like skin peeling from plaster. Inside? Nothing. Just a black, rectangular box on the floor. A tape recorder, old and water-damaged. Its play button blinks. You press it. From the speaker, your voice. If you're hearing this, you're already me. You didn't escape the house. You never left the basement. You're just the next one in line. All we can do now is tell the story again. Until someone listens from the outside. Suddenly, you're back in the hallway of Waterveil Lane. But this time, the house is alive. The walls pulse like lungs. The photographs whisper. The floorboards count your steps, 1, 2, 3, 13, backwards. There is no front door anymore. There never was. The mirrors are open. Not just cracked, gaping. And from them, you step through. All of you. Every version. Every possibility. The you that drowned. The you that forgot. The you that watched. The you that whispered behind the wall. And the one reading this now. You merge. You become the story. The house stops. And breathes. In. Out. And then. It speaks with your voice. Hello, reader. Would you like to come inside? You have said yes. Maybe not out loud. Maybe not in writing. But something in you, the part that kept reading this far, answered. And the house heard. The hallway is long now. Infinitely long. Lined on both sides with mirrors that no longer show reflections. Instead, each mirror shows a pair of eyes, staring back. A room that looks like yours, but with something standing just out of frame. A you with a different name, a different life, but the same fate. You walk. The mirrors begin whispering as you pass. Version 7, never made it out. Version 12, still dreaming. Version 3, chose the door. Version 13, chose you. At the end of the hall is the last mirror. It's not cracked. It's not bleeding. It's just, perfect. A clean, still surface. Your hand rises. Not yours. The reflections. But, you feel it. You feel its breath. Its heartbeat. It touches the glass. So do you. The surface is not cold. It's skin temperature. Then, you're pulled through. You don't fall this time. You simply become somewhere else. The room is small. Sterile. White. A padded chair. A small table. One closed door with no handle. A mirror on the wall, full length. A figure stands across from you. Tall. Familiar. Daniel. But not the Daniel you followed. He's dressed in your clothes. He tilts his head, the same way you remember seeing your reflection do, once, long ago. You made it further than the others, he says. Or maybe you made it earlier. Hard to tell in here. You step closer. He doesn't stop you. You touch the mirror. There's no reflection. There's no outside anymore, he whispers. Just rooms and watchers. Houses and versions. You didn't read a story. You hosted it. He hands you something. A book. Its cover is mirror polished. When you open it, every page is blank. Except the first. The House on Waterveil Lane. Version 14. Author, your name appears, handwritten. And below that. You may write what happens next. But it must end with a choice. Daniel begins to vanish. First his outline. Then his hands. Then his eyes last, those same eyes you saw watching from every wall, from every broken screen, every dripping shard of glass. Now you're alone. Or maybe, you always were. The mirror ripples. On the other side. Your room. Your desk. Your screen. This story. Waiting for your hands to start typing. But your reflection, what should be your reflection, doesn't move. It just smiles. And waits. You know the final rule now. The house never ends. The house never begins. It just waits for someone to remember. And someone else to look too long. A sound echoes down the hallway behind you. Not footsteps. Not dripping. Not breathing. Just a knock. 3 times. And then the voice. Ready to write part 13? The knock fades. Silence wraps around the room like a noose made of stillness. In your hands. A book. Blank pages. A pen that drips ink the color of reflection. Or maybe blood. Across the room, the mirror is no longer showing your world. It shows the house. 23 Waterveil Lane. Door open. Candles flickering. And standing in the doorway, you. You flip the page. Your name sits at the top of the first chapter. Not typed. Carved. As though etched by trembling hands trying to rewrite fate itself. And beneath that. The final choice. Write the ending. Or. Become part of it. Your hands start to shake. Not because you're afraid. Because something inside you is hungry. A space where memory should be. Where the first version of you once made a decision and buried it beneath a floorboard made of forgetting. But the house remembers. It always does. The mirror begins to crack again. This time, from your side. It can't hold you anymore. You've become too much like it. Too layered. Too aware. From the walls of this strange white room, the voices return. You're not reading this. You're narrating it. You're writing yourself deeper. They're watching you now. And they are. You feel it. The weight of the watchers. The eyes. The other mirrors. The next reader. Maybe they're already here. Maybe they just started part 1. There's one last page in the book. You turn to it. It's already written. In your handwriting. But you don't remember writing it. When the 13th version writes the 14th. The house finally eats itself. But not before it leaves one door open. For you. A key falls from between the pages. Not brass. Not cold. Glass. Clear. Fragile. Reflective. The door with no handle opens. Behind it, the hallway. The original one. Waterveil Lane. Only now, the houses are gone. Only mirrors line the street. Tall. Endless. Each showing a different reader. A different you. Each one holding a pen. Each one writing. You walk. You find the final mirror. It shows nothing. A blank page. You press the glass key to it. It cracks, once. Opens. And inside, not darkness. Not horror. Just. A desk. A screen. A cursor blinking. Waiting. The final words are not mine. They're yours. Type them. Or let them type you. But either way. The house has already let you in. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe to my channel. And check out my other stories. Good luck, everyone.